Thank you. Good morning. Call to order the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee meeting of the Tompkins County Legislature. It's Thursday, May 16th at 9 a.m. With us here are Mike Lane and Susan Currie. Randy Brown is joining us remotely, and our other committee member
is excused.
Is excused. Okay, thank you. Changes to the agenda. Just want to mention right after the airport discussion, Arel is going to have a brief report for us. And is there anything else that we need to make changes on? If not, we're up to public comment. And I see with us online, we've got Bruce and Doug Britton. Welcome back.
Oh, thank you. I guess I'll go first. Thank you. I'm Bruce Britton. I wanted to briefly mention the BNL report, the traffic pattern study for the Pleasant Grove Road, Craddock Farm Drive intersection. I hope you've had a chance to read that report. I didn't see it on your agenda for today, but I think next month you're going to have a chance to look at it. Doug and I mentioned it last month during public comment. We hadn't seen the study at that point, but we had seen the contract. The contract prevented any recommendation other than the do nothing, no alternative. The realignment was not allowed to go outside of the existing county right of way, which sort of puts a damper on any realignment. So even though that realignment is required by the MOU and by the town planning board's condition of approval for North Campus. So now we have the report, and surprise, it recommends doing nothing, not because that's what's best, but because that's what the contract restricted it to. But if you actually read the report, it's clear that a roundabout is the preferred alternative. There are many arguments in their favor, no arguments in support of the no. The best the report can do is say, well, there's no crisis, there's no glaring safety problem that requires realignment, and well, it's easier to do nothing. Not exactly a ringing endorsement, but it does sing the praises of roundabouts, and I think Doug wanted to mention that. If I predict, Doug wanted to mention that. But I just wanted to add, and maybe I've mentioned this before, but Doug and I are both engineers. We're not just a couple of bozos off the street, although one could.
We're that too.
one could perhaps at times be forgiven for thinking that. So that's my comment, and thank you.
Oh boy.
Doug.
My turn, I presume. Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot in the BNL report that I'd like to read. I don't have time, but I'll just highlight a few. Starting right off page 1, quotes from the NISTOT Highway Design Manual. It says here, when analysis shows that a single-lane roundabout is a reasonable alternative, it should be considered the department's preferred alternative due to proven substantial safety benefits and other operational benefits. A reasonable alternative is a feasible solution that meets the objectives in a cost-effective and environmentally sound manner. And of course, it does. Cornell sure thought it was cost-effective when they volunteered to pay for it, and it wouldn't cost the town and county anything. Environmentally sound, it's about the lowest environmental impact of any roundabout you could think of. So that's a pretty solid recommendation from the New York State Department of Transportation. BNL adds a few more. I'm not going to have time to go through them all. But they say the provision of page 12, provision of a roundabout has the potential to improve safety by reducing the number of conflict points, and the geometry of roundabouts inherently results in lower vehicle speeds, which translates to less severe crashes, i.e. fewer injuries and fatality. And there's a lot more on that on page 15, right in the middle, figure 9. Crash modification factors. They say if you take a two-way stop-controlled intersection, which is what is there now, and convert it to a single-lane roundabout, then in, let's say, a suburban setting, you can expect that after you convert it to a roundabout, you will have only 22% as many accidents as you have now. So what that means, you make a roundabout there, you have a 78% reduction in accidents, according to the Highway Safety Manual. Sounds pretty good to me, especially if Cornell does it for free for us. Page 17 on the bottom lists a whole bunch of things you can expect to achieve if you put in a roundabout. Reduced vehicle speeds, reduced crash frequency, reduced crash severity, reduced delay, reduced stopping, reduced queuing. As a gateway effect to reinforce a change of context, like, entrance to Cornell, and to promote speed reduction. Placemaking, which is creating a connection between people and their communities and more pedestrian-friendly environments. I'm going to have to skip to the last paragraph here. As previously mentioned, simply because there is not a pattern of crashes at the study intersection does not mean the potential safety benefits cannot be realized by implementing an alternative form of intersections. In this case, the roundabout alternative has the potential to provide enhanced safety measures at the study intersection. And then it comes to the conclusion, which is, well, if you don't care about any of this, you could leave it as it is, which ignores the fact that realignment is required. It is safer. It would cost the town and county nothing, and it would make a very nice entrance for Cornell. So we have our answer. What's the best way to realign the intersection, which is required? Well, it's a roundabout. So I think it's time to get going. Cornell has to come up with a few proposals, and Jeff and Joe from the town have to approve something. We're behind schedule. Let's go. And thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Doug. The report has been received and will be placed on the June agenda at this point. And your legislator, Shauna Black, has relayed neighborhood concerns, and we will be following up on those, and the input is valuable to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there any further public comment? Chair's report, nothing major at this point. I did report out at the last legislature meeting on the green facilities issues, and kind of queued that up, that that'll be coming forward in the budget discussion, and that there's a number of considerations, and some more urgent than others. And thank Arel and Terry and administration for that report last month. It was comprehensive, and I think a good amount there for the entire legislature to consider as we move forward. County Administrator's report.
Thanks, Lee. This month, I would just say we are in administration working and will be reviewing the project approval request forms for the capital projects, meeting with departments in the coming weeks to go over that make up the capital plan. So nice segue, thank you. And then secondly, we are edging ever closer to the closing on the Sears Street parcel with INHS. So that went through rather lengthy subdivision process with the city, and they have reached the end of that and are we're close to the closing.
Thank you, Lisa. Do the committee members have any questions for county administration? Mike?
Is there a survey of that parcel?
Yes.
I wondered if we might be able to see it.
Sure.
That would be nice.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we can get that to you.
Thank you. Let's move up to the Highway Department. Jeff is on with us.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
For the committee today, it's for information only capital payment summary report. Not a lot to talk about, but if you look at it and have any questions, I'm happy to answer or get an answer.
Any questions for Jeff on the report? Randy?
Hi, Jeff.
Hi.
I noticed that all around the county you're putting stone on roads that you had previously paved last year, I think, and then oil and stone, I guess. Could you explain that process and what the benefits of that, and maybe who's paying for it?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to. We just completed our 46 miles of chip seal all around the county. Most of the roads, our process happens where in the previous year, as you said, we pave the road. We use a stronger, more dense binder material, has larger stones in it, but as being having that it has larger stones in it, it's subject to penetration of the elements, so it would not last as long if it doesn't have a seal on it or a top course. So typically we pave all of our roads one year, and then the following year we come over them with a chip seal, and then the chip seals are maintained every 5 years after that. They're a lot less expensive than a top course or trying to pave both courses on in the same season. We also do chip seals for a strictly preservation idea on some of our older roads, like I said, every 5 years or so. So there's more roads out there that we were able to get to, not just the roads we paved last year. It does create a lot of questions from public. We have a great resource on our website page. All the emails that I receive, all the calls, we share that website link. It's a one-page document that explains really what the reason for and how we use this chip seal process and the benefits of that process. So I'm happy to share that if anybody would like to see it, or you can find it on our website.
Great, thank you, that was very helpful, appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
I'd be glad to see that if it could be forwarded.
Yeah, it's an easy link to share. I can send it here in a few minutes. You'll get it in your email.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I come in Warren Road this morning, Jeff. I see there's been some work up there. Looks like you're continuing on up to the north from last year's project.
Correct. Yeah, we late last week, our vendor, Highway Rehabilitation Corporation, completed that hot asphalt recycling process on that section of Warren Road, and also there's a section on Fall Creek Road 105, 106 that from Freeville to McLean.
Two pretty heavily traveled thoroughfares for you.
Yeah, we like to keep them in really pretty good shape based on the volume and the speed and the the level of traffic that those roadways see. Those processes will be covered with a hot asphalt. A millimeter, it's a 7 millimeter polymer asphalt top course.
Right.
Yeah, I was just over the section of Fall Creek Road. It's already an improvement there. And so when it gets finished up, it'll be even better. But that was an area that needed that work, so I'm glad to see it done. And then I had one other question. Jeff, the Cortlandt Street Bridge in Groton, do we expect that work to start this year? I see the, on the capital payments, the engineering services.
Yeah, definitely. It's moving along. Unfortunately, we're at the point in the year where we do not think that the construction will start this year. We are in the right-of-way phase, which we've been meeting with landowners over the last, actually, yesterday was one of the meetings. There are 3 landowners affected. We are in the middle of scheduling a public meeting coming up in, if you let me turn, I believe at this point, tentatively scheduled for May 29th, Wednesday. I don't have any more details than that. It'll be in the evening. So we'll definitely get that shared when it's set up. Following the public meeting and the completion of the right-of-way phase, we will be able to move quickly into a final design and bidding. But it's by the nature of the bridge and the long lead items that are required with the steel beams and whatnot that are going in that bridge, it's unlikely that it's not going to happen construction of this season. But it'll be really well prepared, we expect, giving us what's left in the year this year to have the bid done, advertised, awarded, and ready to go for spring. If you get it awarded this year, those long lead items can be ordered, and then it will have a good season in 25 to get underway and completed.
I know that's been a long time in coming, so glad for the update.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, if you could keep me posted on the public meeting aspects there. That's that'll be a major consideration up in that neighborhood with all the businesses and local facilities. And glad to hear you're talking with the landowners, and they're starting to have a few questions, but I think it's good to hear that it doesn't look like it's yet this year, so that gives you lots of time to plan.
Yeah, Lee, and like I said, the dates are tentative, and one of my emails this morning was going to be to you to confirm that those were going to work for you, being so close to that neighborhood.
I'll be able to watch every morning when I get up. Thanks, Jeff. Any other questions for Jeff, or any questions that might be on the capital payment summary? Well, I think we covered it. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Last month, we had Arel here for some topics and updates, and they kind of like to continue that trend. And one of the things they brought forward was that it would be a good time to hear about operations at the airport. And I know that Rocky's in the process of putting together budget proposals, and as with others, there's a lot of considerations. And I know there's some things you want to tell us a little bit about on operations. So I won't steal your thunder. I'll turn it over to Roxanne Noble to update us on the airport.
Thanks, Lee.
And Josh.
I'm going to start off with something that's not in the report, but we had some news come out. United is actually going to add a third flight in November. Right now, it's going to be just over a month. It's going to still be to Newark, but it's an additional flight. It's going to be beginning at the end of October through early December. So they I have to attribute this to the air service team that's been really working hard, Josh and Matt Colbert and Chris. So the constant communication and us reaching out to them has really shown that, and they know we have the market for it. So them adding a third flight is just another positive step, and hopefully it will continue. And, talks are still continuing on, the DC service and what we're doing there, and other opportunities. But this is just another positive thing that we look forward to, and any positive bit of information we can get from the airlines is great news. So it'll be a midday flight. Hopefully maybe it'll be just something that they'll add permanently, or who knows what's going to happen. But I wanted to start with great news.
When did you say this would start?
It's going to start October 27th and run through December 2nd. And that's, really a key time, too, for the airport, with students, with travel for breaks over Thanksgiving. So that's probably another way for them to really judge. But our load factors have been doing well. January this year wasn't as good as either airline expected, but January is typically a slow month for us anyway. But things are looking good. Our employments are up. Our employments were up in 2023 over 2022. Not a huge amount, but at least it's growth. So I have to keep, working at that and looking at positive ways to have people try Ithaca. And that's something that I've been saying to people, and to hear comments back on that's positive as well, that people are able to get flights out of Ithaca cheaper, or within a good range. So that's our goal, is to just get people in seats, and that's what we've been working on. So that's a positive start there. Any other questions on that? Okay, we can move to some of the stuff in the report that I sent out, and we'll give a little more detail on things. So the ARF SRE building, that was a project that really came to fruition back in 2018. And we started with a study, and then the design, and then the pandemic hit, and the financial situation of the airport wasn't where we felt we could afford it. So I couldn't come to the committee, and Josh couldn't come to the committee and say, we need to bond more money for this project. So we kind of put it on hold. Then, thanks to the help from the legislators and everybody here, we were able to get a couple of grants to help additionally, cover the costs for this. Congressional direct spend, an Air 99 grant, by Josh going out and looking at different types of buildings that we could build that would save us money. This was a great way to do that. The project was initially like $34 million, and we're down to just over $21 million all in from design to construction. So it's kind of back on the plan. We're still finalizing numbers. We don't have a final construction cost, but we have the estimates. And we're still playing kind of a shell game of how we can apply the funding to best cover the costs. And we're looking at, it'll probably be around a $400,000 spend from the airport fund balance. That's what we're looking at right now with all of the grants we're getting in. So also we have the sale of the DOT land. I'm looking at this because I know, PFCs is a big question that everybody has, and we're not covering them because we don't have the traffic that we do. So we're reaching out to the FAA to see, because there's a portion of the land from the DOT that we can't use towards this project. It's like $600,000. So could we use that to the PFC portion of the project is something that I think would be a good use for. It would be one less thing we would have to worry about adding to a PFC application. So that's something that's in the talks. And then still we could add it to the application and get ourselves reimbursed as, PFCs increase.
I'm sorry, I'm lost. Could you run through that again? What are we asking for?
So we're going to ask the FAA. So currently, the total project is like $21 million,
yes,
which has about a $900,000 PFC associated with it, which is passenger facility charges, right, which we get back through the passengers, but we're delayed in getting the PFCs back because we don't have the employments that we used to have. So we have money that was from the sale of the DOT land, sale of the land to the DOT, and we're thinking if we could use the money that we can't use towards the project because of the regulations and it being AIP, can we use that to cover some of the PFCs so we don't have to put that out as a bond or have the county cover it until we can recoup it? Just trying to keep the costs down for the airport for the county initially. The $900,000 isn't something that the county is responsible for in the long run. It would be recouped from passenger facility charges, but there's a delay in collection of those.
Where is that money now from the sale?
It's in a separate account. It had to be put into a separate account to be used and approved for by the FAA. It was 800 and some thousand. So I have estimated that we can use 227,000, I believe, of that towards the ARF SRE that's eligible to be used towards the project.
And then does that get replenished? Is that what you're saying, or we just use it?
It depends. So we're working that through with the FAA. I don't have an answer back on that. So the 600,000, the 200,000 wouldn't get replenished. That's money that we would use towards the project to keep our costs down as the airport fund balance. But the 600,000 is something I'm thinking would be a good use possibly to cover the PFC portion, so we wouldn't have to put that into a PFC application. But we could, I believe, and that's also a question I've asked, if we could put it into a PFC application to get it reimbursed, but it wouldn't be something that the county would have to cover initially.
Okay, I think I understand what's going on now.
That makes sense, yeah. So, and it's just, so we have the congressional direct spend, and there's a lot of regulations on how the money is applied to the project. You have portions of the project are AIP eligible and portions are not. So we have to, it's a percentage and they're still working that. So we're trying to get it as much of it as we can AIP eligible, because that's a larger federal share for us. But we can use like the state grant, the Air 99 grant money that's for non-AIP eligible portions. Like there's certain portions of the building that aren't AIP eligible. It's a small amount on the overall project. So we're just trying to maximize the funds that we have to the best that we can. So I'm still, working through the numbers, but that's kind of where we're at. And I don't know if Josh wants to talk a bit about the building or any other information. Any questions?
Just for those listening, with the acronyms, the PFCs are the passenger charges.
Yep, passenger facility charges, which is a fee that's charged on every ticket, on every leg of your trip. It's $4.50, but we get $4.39 back.
Those are the ones that you're having slow remuneration from. And AIP?
Airport Improvement Program. So that's what's, the FAA approves what they'll pay for based on that program.
And then as far as the sale of the land, went into a reserve fund for future airport use.
Correct. Yep, and that was a stipulation from the FAA, and then they have to review what the use is and approve that.
Lisa?
Well, and is everyone aware what ARF-SRE, the ARF-SRE building, that's another acronym?
Sorry, aircraft rescue and firefighting snow removal equipment.
Which you have a lot of.
We do.
New fire station.
Mike?
But I do have some questions on the building. Josh, maybe you're the one to answer this. What is the vision for making this a part of our green facilities at the airport that we've had? Are we talking, what kind of an HVAC system were you thinking of? And, because we just heard about the possibility of a geothermal system for the emergency response building. And I raised the question, could that also be used for this new building? They seem to think it was too far away.
Yeah.
But I wondered what, you might have any comments on
So
that.
we're exploring all options, of course, and how the funding would go on geothermal. Right now, I think it's set up as an all-electric building due to the fact where it is located. We wouldn't be able to come off the terminal geothermal well field or use the Department of Emergency Response because of the length of where the well fields would be. So, of course, geothermal is a pricey task, so we're looking at some FAA funding to see if we could get that covered through an AIP. It's a grant through the FAA that would allow you to do geothermal on new buildings. So I think we're pretty premature on the design on that, on what we're going to do, but all options are on the table for sure. We just got to see about the funding.
Okay, so you're saying it would go all electric unless there could be some funding to make geothermal
Right.
A reality?
Yep.
Thanks.
Any questions on the ARF project? Roxanne's got a little bit more. You know that at $21 or $22 million, they're probably going to be, if not the most expensive capital project the county's undertook, or you're going to be close to it. That's substantial.
Yeah. We had the terminal expansion. That was a big project back in 2019. And, you know, to go from 34 million down to 21 million, I think that speaks a lot of Josh's thought that, you know, we've got to rework this. We can't do it. That's too much. It's too out of line. We don't need, you know, that much of a building. So, you know, him going around and looking at fire stations and looking at opportunities and really just pounding and reaching out to the FAA and the engineers and saying, you know, we can't afford this. You know, we understand we do need it. You know, it is something that we do need, but we've got to just really look at how can we do this affordably. And, you know, and the grants are going to help with the 2 additional grants that we have. So you'll see the PAR form coming forward with the capital stuff, and numbers are changing. And as we get bid documents in, and there's other things that we're looking at doing, and Josh is constantly looking at, all right, what's the project going out as? What can we reduce? How can we reduce the possible costs of initial estimates we were getting? Like, what can we do to save even more?
How many square feet?
It's 46,000 square feet.
Randy's got a hand up.
Hi, Randy. 46,000. Thanks. Randy.
Thank you for the update. That's a lot of money. And I think at a prior meeting, is this something that's being required by the FAA? Remember, if memory serves, or something, is this required?
Yeah, so 2018, it was wrote up during a safety inspection due to the fact that they have certain parameters that they want, like around each piece of apparatus or snowplow equipment. And of course, throughout the years, manufacturers are building equipment much larger. And then there was a big change around 2019 on snow removal requirements. So again, that produced 4 or 5 additional pieces of equipment that the airport had to, that we were funded by the FAA to meet that requirement. Like right now, we have to touch every piece of pavement every 30 minutes if it's snowing 1 inch an hour. So being that we have a staffing, we don't have a lot of staff on, the equipment we are currently using has 2 pieces of equipment ran by 1 operator. So it's a plow and broom. Instead of having a plow out there and a broom out there, we're running tractor trailers to clear that snow that much faster. So we've grown out of the building by FAA requirements. So with this building at 22 million, we got to remember that out of county pocket would be around the $400,000 mark, and the rest of it would be covered either by grants or by the FAA. So they're paying 90% of the overall cost of the AIP eligible part of the building. So they're covering a lot of the cost because they require it.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate all the work you've been doing on that. I know it's a challenge, especially with construction costs as they are now and not going down. But I think my issue is the airport showing a deficit now. The POCs just haven't been enough. And I actually like the idea of raising the hotel tax by 1% and giving that 1% money directly to the airport operations. So I'm for that. So thanks.
Thank you, Randy.
Thanks, Randy. Susan?
That was a really interesting, you started by talking about the snow removal and the requirement. It's the kind of question I get from people in my district, but I didn't write it down, and it was, what was you had to do?
So if it snows 1 inch an hour,
1
we
inch.
have to touch every piece of pavement every 30 minutes.
Okay. So you have to basically clear the snow every 30 minutes?
Every 30 minutes.
See, I know people are not aware of that, so.
Right now, we can clear the runway full length, full width in about 11 minutes.
Wow. That's great trivia. Thank you for doing that. All right, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Roxanne, I know you got more here to
Oh, we do.
tackle.
So we're going to move on to customs. So that has been, something that's come up over the last couple of budget seasons, and it's something we've been looking at and just trying to get a real feel of what's happening. And so we've been exploring avenues of, initially, trying to market it, and, Chris has been doing a marketing campaign, but the operational expenses far exceed the revenue that we're getting. We discussed, different opportunities and what we can do. I've spoke to one of the gentlemen from Customs. He's looking at the lease. Initially, it was looking that the lease, for the Customs facility has 2 parts. There's the agent and then there's the building. And I know there were some questions on, can we close Customs? There's a struggle with that, with just trying to gather all of the information. There's also the UAI Upstate Airport Initiative grant that factors into this as well. There was a large portion of money from that grant to build the building, and we have also bonded some of the money too that we're paying debt service on. But they require like a 30-year useful life as part of the UAI grant, and if you can't close the facility, it has to be repurposed. So I've reached out to Keeley and another person from the DOT to find out, what options are there. When I reached out to Customs, they're looking at more information on that, and the question of, if we don't have an agent there, can we still keep Customs open and bring somebody in? We're just trying to gather as much information so that the county can make as an informed decision on what the best way is to proceed with this. Customs, doesn't generate a lot of revenue even for Teganic. I mean, it is a revenue generator and there is the economic benefit, but it was $273,000 to operate Customs last year. And we took in ourselves between the fuel commissions and the landing fees, which actually came into our operating budget, not even enough to make a dent, like $12,000. And we took in $12,000 from other fees. So trying to figure out the best way to move forward with this, it's a hard decision, I think, for everybody, and it's not something that's taken lightly because there was a lot of money invested. So I just, I want to just really be transparent and give everybody as much information as we can. We had Holly look at the agreements. She's been wonderful, helpful with that. Tom Horth, Ron is part of the strategic plan, and he's doing a lot of looking at this as well as for the airport strategic plan. Ron Price from QED Consulting on what opportunities are there for the airport and other revenue sources, but if the county so chooses, to close customs, or if it can be done, what would we do for a repurposing of the building? I'm not saying that's the way it's going to go or what the county wants to do, but I just want to make sure we have many options and opportunities available and that the county's fully aware of what can happen, what can't happen, and how we can move forward without causing any issues for us as the airport or the county legally.
Just two questions. How soon do you see some decisions needing to be made? And the second one is it creating any kind of a operating deficit for you with those numbers that you were just discussing, the 273,000?
It's a loss for us. We're covering the difference out of our airport fund balance each year, and we, so 273,000 to cover the cost of it, and we're bringing in, and we pull in the other probably 20,000 total. It's showing 12,000, but there's some additional that comes into our operating budget as one check. So it is showing a loss, and it's difficult because I believe the pandemic truly, hurt this, but, we had 26 operations last year through customs. And there's also, somebody had suggested to reach for some political support at the federal level. Maybe there's something that they can do to assist with this as well on what other options we have. Currently, we're a user fee customs facility. So, fees are charged to the aircraft owners, but there's not enough aircraft to gather enough fees. As part of the strategic plan, could we increase the fees? But you would then have to increase the fees so much that you would have zero traffic. So then, it's a catch-22. And I know Josh spoke to David Harris from the customs as well, and to see if there's other opportunities, and if you want to speak on what.
Yeah, so Binghamton is thinking about building a facility, or they were. I'm not sure what direction they're going now, but we were trying to see if we could split the cost for the agent. So if they were in Ithaca on a Monday, clear an aircraft, but there wasn't anything Tuesday, Wednesday, but Binghamton had somebody coming into their facility, we could split that. And currently, right now, the way that their policy is for customs is they don't allow to split that. So we're covering the whole cost. $273,000 and making 20 grand a year, it's not really a good business adventure, I don't believe.
Doesn't sound like it, Lisa.
And that's been the case.
And we've been trying everything, advertising, putting things in magazines. But the ultimate factor is we're a user fee facility. And you can fly to Syracuse Customs or Rochester's Customs and not get charged a dime because they're a congressional port of entry, right? So they don't have a user fee. So that aircraft can come from Canada to Rochester and then fly their continual leg to Ithaca. Or they can come into Ithaca and we have to charge them. So there's the difference.
So to get at your previous question, Lee, about timing, I think that the goal here is to look at all of these options and weave them into the budget process this year. It came up last year, and we had just started scratching the surface of all of the legal questions, and we hadn't had the opportunity to do the full research as to what our obligations would be, and I think that that's what they've been able to be doing these past few months with the county attorney and the consultants.
That's a good update, thanks.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you were looking for things to put into the budget considerations there.
Any other questions? Okay. So just to give you an update on this too, so in March, the Further Consolidated Appropriations Act of '24 was passed by Congress. So it cut the small amount we were getting from the TSA for the sheriff at the terminal, at the checkpoint, which is mandated. So it used to be a fully funded mandate, then it was a partially funded mandate, and now beginning May 1st, it's an unfunded mandate. So again, here we are, okay, now we got to come up with some additional revenue to cover it. And we're working with the Sheriff's Department. We've been working with the sergeants there and with Officer Ziegenfuss and the sheriff on what they can do to help us, reduce our costs by adjusting their schedules. I don't have anything definitive yet. I have an email to Officer Ziegenfuss, and hopefully, they're going to be able to help us out there. But again, that's part of their budget that they have factored in. So it's a lot. It's something that just always seems to happen. And again, we're working through it, and we're trying to think outside the box and how we can make sure that they're covered at the checkpoint, because we have to, or else the flights don't go. So we're working on that, and but it doesn't look like that's going to be funded in the future at all. So.
So an impact of 36,000 for the current fiscal year and 50-some thousand plus for
next
future
year.
years.
Yeah.
Have you got some good news for us?
I started with the good news. Maybe I should have held that out until the end and been like, hey.
I thought maybe you were going to do one of these and come back to something really good.
These are, let's see, where are we on to now? Oh, airport operations contracts. So this is something, so currently we oversee multiple contracts at the airport, and we did an RFP last year for parking. The prices came in, it was a lot of money for a management contract for the parking company. And, Josh and I, on the way back from a conference, had started talking about, we spend a lot of money for the contract services at the airport. How can we cut those costs, and how can we save money? So when we brought the RFP, we were sitting here at an F&I meeting, and we were saying the cost, and someone's like, why aren't you guys just doing it yourselves? So that's where the conversation fully got started, and we got looking at all the opportunities, calculating how could we do this, what staffing would we need, what contracts could we eliminate and cover with county staff. This would also be good job opportunities for additional people within Tompkins County, a livable wage. Okay, so this is something we can look at. So we started calculating and doing some number crunching, and the contract for the parking expires June 30th. We extended it 6 months, and we can extend it 6 additional months. But what Josh and I, have really been looking at, and what we would like to try to do, is somehow make the change this year with some possible additional county employees to cover that, and the overnight security contract. I'm going to let Josh speak to some of the issues that we've run into with not having coverage at the airport 24 hours, not having a county employee on site. So there's a few instances there. So what we're really looking at moving forward is 5 maintenance workers and 2 additional airport firefighters, ops techs. And it will have a savings of roughly for over a year of about 50,000, but which will increase as our employments are increasing, as additional parking revenue comes in. But that's kind of where we're at. We've run numbers. Thanks to Norma and Lisa, they've been a great help at looking at all of this information with us and trying to put it together. But we wanted to kind of get the information out to you before we move forward any farther. And I'm going to let Josh kind of talk about some of the situations we've run into.
Yeah, so the night shift security personnel that are required by TSA to be at the terminal all night long, we pay them almost $100,000 to lock the door and unlock the door. And unfortunately, we can't get them to do any additional work. Like, they can't go out and plow snow, or they can't check the airfield, and they can't even open the gates up when recently we've had an influx of fixed-wing medical aircraft coming in late at night, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and transporting patients out of CMC. Well, I get the phone call, and I get to come in and let the gate open at 2 o'clock in the morning because there's nobody there to let the gate or turn the lights on at the airport to have that aircraft land safely. So the proposal, and we've been working on this for a while, is to bring the airport operations and fire staff at a 24 hours, right? And then that'll cut a lot of additional overtime that we plow snow, because we go to a 24-hour operation during snow events, which we currently cover with overtime. So then we would have airport firefighter operation technicians on site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which also we're filling the terminal with about 150 people at 3:30 in the morning, and there's no county employee there. There's nobody there. So if somebody has a medical event, or if there's an issue with an aircraft or anything like that, there's nobody there to take care of the issues. So with that, looking at all the contracts, like mowing the grass, I mean, just mowing the grass out front is, over $50,000, $60,000. So we can have employees that can take care of all this stuff throughout the day, get with a RELS group and learn our HVAC system a little bit better, and start cutting those costs that we have to pay somebody currently to come in and fix, right? So if we have our own people, we can get them trained up on our systems, and we can work through issues and save a fair amount of money throughout the year, just on without having to bring in contract employees.
What time does the first flight go out?
It flies out at, 5:30 now?
It's 5:26, I think.
5:26. So we usually require everybody to be there. They start screening at 4 o'clock in the morning, or 4:15. So the terminal starts to load up. I think the doors get unlocked at 3:30. So before 4 o'clock, there's people coming into the terminal, going through screening.
And when are the other ones typically coming through? You have the early morning ones going out.
Yeah, so we'll have the 1 o'clock when United starts in. There's 2 flights that go out first thing in the morning, 5:30 and 6, I believe. So that's United and Delta, and then there's a turn
About 1:30 and 2:50, I think, and they're adjusting for their summer schedule. So, yeah, but the early morning flights are back to back. And just the number of medical calls that are happening in the terminal, the number of, in the middle of the night, if there's an accident, they use the airport as a landing zone, which makes sense, safest place to land, nothing around. And it's hard. So Josh is getting the calls every night in the middle of the night, dealing with that. Makes for long weeks.
I get it. I still listen to that radio all night. I understand what you're talking about. I think I'd look over in Lisa and Norma's direction. It looks like there's a potential of adding 7 FTEs to the budget, and that's certainly going to raise some eyebrows with our colleagues. But I'm assuming this is all part of your analysis that's coming forward here in a few weeks.
Yes, this analysis started back in, I want to say 2018, and we have been weighing the pros and cons for quite some time, and have put Roxanne and Josh through the paces to ensure that this, that the numbers are solid, and so it's not a small, or it's not been taken lightly, we'll say. The analysis of the pros and cons of the hiring staff directly versus contract, and I think that there are some significant efficiencies and to be found, and at a modest savings, or at least a break even. Did you add anything, Norma?
The only thing I would say too is that this is not really a new model for the airport. This has been done in previous years. It just hasn't been done in some time. So I think that there is a model that they've had their own maintenance staff in the past, and they've had their own operations staff. But just hearing some of the stories of the life and death situations that folks have been put in by not having anybody available to meet those airplanes when they come in, that's enough to at least be concerned about not having operations staff on site.
Randy.
Hi, Randy.
Yeah, thank you for taking a look at this over the years and looking at the pros and cons. Would it be interesting at a later date to see how revenue is generated for the whole facility, including the parking? Trying to understand how much revenue is there, and how you envision if that's going to stay the same, or I was really unclear on who even owned the parking lot. At one time I thought Cornell owned part of it, or we leased it or something, but if that's true or not. But just curious how the revenue comes in, who it comes from, and it would be helpful for me.
Absolutely. I do a wonderful thing called Airport Finances 101. I've given classes on it for members of the Air Service Board, so anytime, I love talking about the numbers at the airport.
Would you consider doing that maybe for the committee in, I'll say, July, as we're heading into the budget season?
Yeah, I can explain where the revenues come in and how they're calculated and how the rates and charges are figured, because that's a whole nother model of how we get the landing and fees and the rental rates. And it's a detailed process. It's an extensive process, but it's interesting, and how it changes, how the rental cars, they're a really good source of revenue for us, and the parking. So, yeah, and just looking at the numbers, and also, by having the staff be our staff too, as we're looking at possible low-cost carrier coming in, in the future, this is something where they could assist with that, with helping, for the low-cost carriers only here, doing like 2 days a week, they could also help with baggage. So, it's just trying to cut the costs and keep our CPE, our cost per enplane passenger, down, to make it, continue to be a profitable place for airlines to operate. And I'm thankful for the relationship we have with the airlines. That has helped. But by looking at all of this, and any amount of money we can save, I think is a benefit.
Well, I think given some of the suggestions that Randy's brought forward, and the fact that we've got a half a dozen relatively new legislators, that would be really good information heading into the budget process, and because we know there'll be conversations very much so over the next few months. Susan.
Thank you for all this detailed information. Certainly having control over the staff yourself makes a huge difference. I have a pretty basic question. So let's say I go for that, 3:30 in the morning, I have to check my baggage in. When I go to the gate, the person at the, behind the counter that's checking in the baggage, is that an airport employee? That is the airline employee, right? That's what I thought. I just wanted to confirm that. So that's part of, those are people there, and people, what I would guess is people who come to the airport see that person and think they represent the airport, but they don't. They represent the airlines, and so that causes another layer of complication. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or thoughts, or?
Keep rolling along there. Oh. I know you got some other highlights. Mike?
Have you got more to tell us about? I've got a couple of questions that are a little off to the side here.
Oh, I just have just a few other topics, like Airport Day.
Let her do that.
Okay, sure.
I'll come back.
Sure. So coming up, and these are all in your description, so I won't talk about them much. September 14th is our Airport Day. We're actually going to make it a county and a community event. So any other departments or anybody that wants to set up a table, we've asked that. We've sent it out to department heads. But it's going to be a great event, so make sure you come up to the airport, pancake breakfast. We're also having our full-scale emergency disaster preparedness drill on Saturday, June 15th. If you would like to be a victim, please reach out to Jeff Dunn. You get moulaged. I believe initially Annie Corman was going to do it, but I think she's not able to now. But her and Greg Mezey were both very interested. And it's actually something to witness if you've never experienced anything fire service related like that in emergency services. It's a learning curve. You really see what the local volunteer agencies and the airport, what they go through on a daily basis for any instance. So, hats off to them. And there's a lot of people involved. The strategic business plan, that is moving forward. We're having another report at the Air Service Board from the planning consultant. And again, they're putting together a lot of information and looking at opportunities and ways to generate not only just non-airline revenue, but aeronautical revenue on the field and off the field, and how we can, just increase our revenues and keep our costs down and keep moving forward with that. So hopefully I'll probably have a report for the committee maybe July on that, but I'll keep you posted and updated. And marketing, so that's really, hit the ground running. Chris has done a lot with that. That's been a great addition, having somebody on staff to be able to take care of the marketing. We're doing digital, we're covering areas, around on where we're trying to pull our leakage from. We have some of the print ads going out and radio. We did 3 RFPs to it wasn't for the marketing work itself, it's what avenue to put it out on. So, as part of the procurement process, we had to get, information on where we can put the print ads and choose and select the best one. So Chris did a really great job with that. So that's what I have. You're welcome.
Thanks, Roxanne. And let me just kind of add to your bit about the emergency drill, just for those that are learning about that. It not only allows the airport to test their extensive plans, but it's the opportunity they're able to provide to our emergency responders in the hospital and numerous others that also have requirements for testing their plans and integrating them all together. You really get quite a look at what the overall public safety and law enforcement response looks like and healthcare response looks like in the community. I think you've still got an EOC element as well that allows the Department of Emergency Response to activate their plans. So it's good if you're able to come up and observe that. You really see scores of people in action when they bring that together.
And what's required beyond, and Josh can attest to this, beyond not just the day, not just the date and the time that the accident happens, but what's required and when the National Transportation Safety Bureau comes in, what their requirements are. I mean, I learned that probably the most information in the last drill, and they take over hotels, and I mean, it's a huge incident that's very involved, and the number of people involved and the date and the time put in for a drill, let alone if the event actually happens.
So where does it happen?
So it'll be at the airport. So
Yes.
So it'll be the Emergency Response Center and the Airport Administration Building are two of the key areas, and then they're going to do it out at the training site. I'll let Josh speak more of that.
Yeah, so we have a training site out back of the airport on Snyder Road that we do the actual scenario-based situation. So we run it like a real incident. Air traffic gives us the assignment. We call dispatch. They start dispatching mutual aid departments. And then, we get there, assess the situation, and that's when we start, requesting additional resources from the volunteer department or agencies and, the city of Ithaca, sheriff's office. We do a lot of role playing, the hospital. So it goes, our portion usually goes for about 2 to 3 hours. And then we're going to transport all the patients off. But if the EOC, I mean, they could go for days, right? Like how, in a real incident, it would be weeks, how we would run the EOC. And that would be the Department of Emergency Response, of course, county administration. It's just how far do you want to take the drill? So we have a requirement that we have to maintain for the FAA, and then we just, we try to bring the other agencies to test their plans to see how that would work if there was an incident.
So if an observer wanted to come, they would come to the emergency response building?
No, you come to the CFR building, and then then we would actually take you out on the airfield, and we'll have a designated area for observers to watch the whole thing unfold.
I'm not sure, that might be Dairy Day, Mike, is it? The 15th?
I think it is. Or is it the 8th? Might be the 8th.
Not sure.
think it's the 8th.
June's a busy month, so thanks. Roxanne, any questions for the airport on what's been presented this morning? Mike, I know you had a couple things we wanted to circle back to.
Yeah, you know, when we're talking about airport things at the legislature, we often hear some legislators say, you know, why do we spend all this money on the airport? You know, why doesn't Cornell pay for it? This is something that we do for rich people, not the average taxpayer. We hear all that, and we hear it from legislators. And I just wondered, is there information out there about the demographics of the people who use the airport that might be useful to our fellow legislators to, so that they could see that it's not just rich people who use airports, it's people who need to travel, want to travel, need to go visit a sick relative, a lot of things like that. And I think that would be something that we could use in our information bank.
Absolutely. I can look at that information. I know Chris can put together some information. We've done some surveys in the past. We're also working on a Title VI plan for the FAA, and that's going to be gathering a lot of the information on, you know, users of the airport and what's around the airport and who, you know, languages, you know, spoken in the airport. So lots of different information that I think I can get more information. I can add some questions to the survey that we'll be doing. So absolutely.
That would be very helpful.
Sure.
The other thing I wondered about is Route 81 construction in Syracuse. And is that going to be to our advantage? And is there a sensitive way we can put that out to the public and say, do you really want to travel Route 81 now? Maybe you ought to think about flying Ithaca.
Yeah, that's definitely one of our marketing campaigns that we are working towards. We're also using that in airline conversations that some of the airlines that we're currently talking to didn't even know that was happening. So it does increase about a travel time about 20 minutes to Syracuse Airport because you got to take 41 and back. So at 3 o'clock in the morning, if you got a 5 o'clock flight and you're supposed to be there at 3, you got to leave about midnight. So, I mean, we're using that softly just because we don't want to create any issues with Syracuse, of course. You know, they're really not, they're taking some passengers from us, but we're probably losing a little more to the south. You know, there's some numbers out there. We're looking at all avenues to bring passengers back to Ithaca, because the more people that are trying to buy tickets, the airlines know, and that's when they'll start putting seats back in the market. And everything that we do revenue-wise, and when Roxanne gives her little spiel, her class here in a couple months, you'll find that it all really stems from how many seats we have that go in and out of the airport a day.
Thanks.
I remember when we had the convenience for my personal business on receiving cargo at the airport, but I don't think you got any PFCs out of those.
No, probably not.
But it's too bad that, you know, some of us have to, from a business standpoint, go to the more distant airports just because of the way that things are today in the industry.
I'm just trying to get information out there too. I mean, we have great marketing, but anytime I can talk to people, and that whether it's at a restaurant or whatever, and finding out that, they did try Ithaca and they've gotten a cheaper flight out of here than out of Syracuse, or it's within a number that makes sense so that they're not having to drive up and spend the night. I said, you have to factor all these things in, and the time and driving up 81 in the middle of winter, or, all of those things. And when you get home, you're usually 10 to 15 minutes from your house. And if you're getting in on a late flight, you can be home within 30 minutes or less. So just making that information too, as legislators, that anytime you can share that, try Ithaca. It may not work, and I understand it if it doesn't, but try to fly out of Ithaca. I've heard so many people that have had really great luck with getting tickets that are a good price.
Well, it's convenience.
Yeah, and that's a factor too, and parking and all of that is right there.
Well, thank you for the comprehensive report. Does the committee have any more questions?
No, just thank you. That was really wonderful information.
Thanks. And Susan, let us know when you want to come up
Yes,
for a tour.
I will.
That would be great.
Thank you.
You've teed us up, and I know Arel has joined us, and
Don't we have a resolution?
yeah, I'll come back to that. Did you have anything you wanted to add from the facilities standpoint that Rocky covered earlier with Josh? Okay, and one question was raised about factoring in the future projects into the green facilities, so that didn't escape our attention from the discussion at last month's meeting, so thanks. Resolution, yes, Mike, thank you.
Yes.
We have before us a resolution authorizing award of bid and anticipated receipt and acceptance of Federal Aviation Administration, BIL, from the FAA and New York State Department of Transportation, DOT grant for terminal apron rehabilitation, Ithaca Tompkins International Airport, ID number 12389. Would you like to move that?
Sure.
Mike moves, Susan seconds, and Roxanne, do you want to explain what this means?
So what we do is try to do one resolution to cut down the time and hassle of, accepting a bid or, and then accepting a grant. So we put it all into one. The application's in with the FAA now. We're anticipating getting a grant to rehab the terminal apron. Again, Josh and his brilliancy a couple years ago, we were struggling, and they were able to work closely with the highway and get some repairs done because we were having issues with the pavement sinking. So I'm going to let Josh speak on the actual project, but that's what this is it's part of the FAA, it's part of the capital plan, it's something that the pavement, needs to be replaced, especially with getting larger aircraft in, and I'll let Josh speak.
Yeah, so the commercial ramp where commercial air carriers are currently parked is, at its limit, right? So the aircraft are rutting the pavement. Jeff and his group tremendously saved us a ton of money and helped us through some bad situations where we were having aircraft almost sinking in within a foot in the blacktop, so we were able to cut that out and do some concrete work. So what this will do will fix everything to the standard, put some concrete stands in where the aircraft will park. So for the larger aircraft, we're making the stands big enough that'll pretty much fit anything that could possibly come into Ithaca, so we don't have to do this 5 years from now. And it's just, cleaning up the commercial ramp, repaving it, and restriping it.
And as part of the bipartisan infrastructure law, the funding from that was through COVID, and the airports got money for over 5 years that they can use, so it was a congressional thing.
Okay, so for anybody listening, total project cost is about $3.2 million. 2.9 is coming from the FAA, and the remaining funds are covered through the state DOT and airport facility charges. And you had 3 bids and awarding the lowest one to a local company, Suitcoat. Further discussion or questions? All in favor? I'll have to ask, I guess, with Randy being away. Let me start with Susan.
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further? Well, thank you for the comprehensive report, and we look forward to the finance discussion.
It'll be so much fun.
Great. Thanks, Roxanne. Thanks, Josh. Arel, would you like to come up and join us briefly? I let the committee know that you might have one item here for us.
Okay, good. Well, thank you. Yeah, I called Lee early this morning to let him know that I wanted just a few minutes just to introduce a new employee that started at the beginning of the week. To my left, Christian Vasui is our new project manager that we hired. First time that we've had this position. Dedicated mostly will be to our capital projects program. So it'll help lighten my burden. All these years, I've been the only one really focused on a capital program. So it's been kind of a pleasure to at least these 4.5 days to work with Christian. We just came from public safety building, and so I had hoped to get here a little earlier. We're doing a shutdown of the public safety building. We have multiple generators to do our upgrade for a new generator there at the building. So NYSEG was there. They were late. They were supposed to show up at 7:30, didn't show up till 8:30, and then had problems. So I wanted to stay till we made sure that they could disconnect the building so that we could do the switchover for new equipment for the generator. This is Christian Vasiu. He's originally from Romania. Many of you know that I'm originally from Peru, a native, and so we have a kind of multicultural department already. He comes with strong experience in construction, large construction, spent many years in New York City, likes the slower pace here in our community. Worked briefly, I think last year, for the city of Ithaca, so he's very familiar with the area. He's trying to get familiar with all our buildings. We have a lot of buildings, and so we've mostly focused the last few days in buildings where we have capital projects like public safety building. He was here Tuesday for downtown facility special committee. Focus will be also for him on that project, and we have some smaller capital projects occurring now. So I just wanted to introduce you to him. If you have any questions for me or for him, we'd be pleased.
You want to tell us a little of your background, and welcome, Christian.
Thank you very much. Mostly Aurel described pretty much everything about myself. Yes, I'm coming from originally from Romania, coming from New York City. This is where the plane landed. I never sued anybody in my life and not planning to sue, but I'm going to make this public what's in my mind. I think I'm going to sue John Wayne because I like his Western movies before I left Romania, and Jean-Claude Van Damme. And now I see it's different being an immigrant and a tourist. It's totally different than what I imagined, especially things are changing. But I love the place Ithaca. By mistake, I found about Ithaca while looking for city jobs in New York City. I was working several years, and then I bumped into Ithaca, and then I started to do research. But most of the job, unfortunately, they require residency, so it was difficult for me to get in. Finally, I was able to get a job with City of Ithaca, but New York City called me back. I left during the pandemic. I found a job in Pennsylvania as a consultant inspector looking for PennDOT, Department of Transportation. It was a Transportation Authority building. I found a job in Ithaca. I forgot about it since I applied. They called me. I said, I'm still interested. But New York City offered me a much better, so I went back. And while I was in Ithaca, I applied for this position, project manager. And I was surprised I was called. And I'm actually, I don't know how to call it, good luck or a blessing from God. So I enjoy being here. I'm still getting familiar with the city. It's a big difference. And I hope to contribute, helping, and I have experience in construction. Aurel is driving me around to see all the departments. I think there is a need for a central government building for the taxpayer, first of all, and also for the employees. So that would be a great new project for me to help, to contribute to. So I enjoy being in the city of Ithaca. I'm learning about it.
Well, thank you. It's great to have you. Welcome. I've watched Aurel juggle God knows how many projects over the last 25 or 30 years, and it's good to see him have this level of expertise to add to his staff. So glad to have you, and we'll be seeing you as time moves on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aurel, do you have anything else you want to tell us about while you're here, or you covered things quite well last month?
Yeah, so public safety project is moving forward. This is a key shutdown. We probably still have, I would say, 3 more months of work to do there. We converted they have one single holding cell on the correction side, and part of this project was to create 3 smaller holding cells. So that the holding cells are done. We're waiting for the controls so that the shelter control can lock and unlock those doors. The next phase, we're going to be doing improvements to their booking area. Over the years, they've had to move booking to different parts of the jail. And so where they are now, they need a bathroom and showers. And so that's the next phase that we're going to be doing, or next activity as part of this project. And then once that's done, really the largest part of this project will be major work in the kitchen. The kitchen is original. Several of the underground pipes have rotted away. And so we've got to excavate, jackhammer the slab in the kitchen area, which means that we're going to, I mentioned this at the last committee, I'm pretty sure that we were going to have to board out inmates to do this, and also provide food service, which had not been anticipated back when we originally put the project out for proposals, because at that time the inmate count was half what it is now. And the sheriff and Ray Bunce, the captain, were able at that point they felt they could move inmates around in the building without needing to board out. However, now the inmate population is in the low 60s, so it's double what it was, which means we cannot, the capacity of the jail is 72, which means we can't move 30 inmates somewhere else, which means we have to board out. And so there's the potential that we will need to come back to this committee for contingency funds to allow that to happen. So what we're doing is we're basically pushing that part of the work as far back as we can, and hoping that once we get into the summer months, the inmate population does drop, which may allow us to do some moving around with inmates within the building. If not, we will have to board inmates out. So that's that project. We started our cold storage project over at Bostrick Road, which is a project we wanted to do for 22 years. When we first did the project at Bostrick Road, 2002. The base bid was to do the expansion to allow for facilities to move there from Biggs A. For those of you that remember, we used to be in Biggs A, that no longer exists, and so we did an addition, and as part of that bid, we had what we call an ad alternate, which was for a storage building. When the bids came in, we only had enough money budgeted to do the base contract, not to accept this additional bid, which back then was $80,000, Welliver McGuire, to do the work for a larger storage building. And now the building is smaller and we're paying much, much more. But that project started about a month ago. They were pouring the foundations yesterday. Christian was there observing that, and we pointed out a few things to the contractor there. So the contractor is hoping to get substantial completion by early to midsummer. So that will allow us to store a lot of our extra materials and supplies, and we will be sharing that 6,000 square foot building with soil and water, 3,000 per department. Many of you may remember the old library was our storage building for many years, and when we sold it, we had to remove, dispose, and recycle a lot of materials that were there, and we really have nowhere else. We're using temporarily the key bank to store some things, but it's mostly furnishings that we removed from either the health department or that key bank left there. So we really have no cold storage for the facilities. So that project's underway. The masonry restoration project in the core complex has been happening. The last part that they still need to focus on is this building, and I think that is going to pick up again in the coming weeks. Their focus had been in the main courthouse and some work at the old jail. I think they're waiting for some materials for this building. And then we've got a few other minor projects going on, and then currently the RFQ should be going out hopefully tomorrow. Finance is reviewing it, but our piece is done. And then it'll be out for a month, and then we will start interviewing consultants for award of a contract for the design and engineering of the Center of Government project.
Thanks. Mike?
Really glad to be seeing the work around these buildings. I thought they did a nice job restoring the front steps to the main courthouse the salt doesn't treat them very well, does it?
Right, no.
They gonna paint the flagpole?
Yes. I was waiting for that to come up in the next few months. We have a contract. I think I reported that. We awarded the contract, over a year ago. And one of the challenges back then was getting a lift. We said we will provide the lift because you can't drop the pole. You basically have to work up the pole. And so we are just waiting to have the availability of the contractor to do the work. That's one challenge that I've indicated. Pre-COVID, it was very easy to get contractors to come in. Now we're finding it very difficult to have contractors do work for us, especially small work. I mean, if it was a large project, painting a building, easy. We had to really push them to do some of the repair work in this chamber space several months ago. So that's a challenge. Contractor, we used to do a lot of kind of small general work contract. McPherson Builders, they are no longer in existence. They liquidated several weeks ago. So that was a company that we would always go to do stuff like that, and they would just hire a sub. So that's just a challenge that we have. And also not every painting company does qualify with the requirements for the county as far as insurance and all those. So it's not as simple as it is, but yes, we are pushing them. It is a contract that we've awarded, and we're just waiting for them to get started. So I will remind our general maintenance supervisor again. I always tell them I'm going to committee meeting and it may come up. So please continue pushing our contractor.
Thank you for that. And how about the replacement of the copper downspout that was stolen?
Oh, so I updated that. They did locate the individual.
Really?
Yeah, the police did press charges.
Well, I'm pleased to hear that.
Yeah. Individual lives in Elmira, worked for a company that does work for us and other customers in this area. Is no longer employed by that company because of what happened here, but also at other areas. We were able to actually find that type of a downspout. It's not a common cross-section profile, and so we've ordered it. It's just a longer lead time to get that, so I'm hoping that it'll be in the next several weeks to be installed.
I'm so pleased. Usually those kind of situations, they don't end up finding the person, but I'm glad that that person is being charged properly, and obviously couldn't find the actual downspout, probably.
No, he already recycled it and got cash for it.
For the copper.
Yeah.
Randy?
Yes, so that is good news. Thanks for sharing that. So is there a plan to do the concrete work around the entrances of the chambers there? Is that on the list as well? Or?
Yes, and so that's what I was referring to earlier. That project that we currently have here in the court complex, stone and masonry restoration, includes the work around this building, and so it is part of that. There's just been a delay. They have to get some additional materials and a special coating for some of the entrances, and so that will be happening. My hope is before summer starts, so soon.
Great. The other question I had is around signage, and it was brought up at the last legislature meeting for the legislature building, how it's not well identified. Is that a facilities issue, or is that something else?
Yes, we did some signage, gosh, it's been maybe 3 years ago for wayfinding. We have one sign in the front of this building. And then I remember showing examples of the signage to this committee. It's been several years ago. We had a mock-up here.
We had them in the chambers, yeah.
Right, and then we also have a sign here on the DeWitt side. Beyond that, we can do more. So, interior directories and those, yes, that's all something that we can do. I know that as part of the Center of Government project, that is something that we're looking at doing for the entire complex for wayfinding, not only to that building, but all the other buildings, because we want to create kind of a campus type feel for this block. So yes, but yeah, otherwise signage is squarely our responsibility. So if there are any suggestions or ideas, let us know and we can work on that.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Arel.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Next item for reporting purposes, transportation, but I see Fernando is with us online. Do you have anything you want to inform the committee on today, Fernando?
Start my video. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Not a lot, just a couple of things. There's a number, as usual, a number of transportation planning efforts going on in the community. My agency's updating its long-range transportation plan. We're going to have a public meeting at the library next month. There'll be more information coming out on that. The transportation equity needs assessment that I think has been presented to the legislation has been completed. It will help feed some of the information that goes into a long-range plan. So folks in the transportation sector are working together with this effort. We'll continue to support and kind of shore up car share as it restarts its services in the community. There's been a lot of activity. Car share, before it closed down last year for insurance reasons, had 30 cars on the road. Right now it went down to 20. So there's room to grow to get back to where we were. And of course we have, as a group, I think car share has an interest in continuing to grow beyond that. The bike share system is ubiquitous now and getting a tremendous amount of use. So we continue to work with all those groups to provide more transportation options in the community. And of course, supporting TCAT in anything and everything we do. So that's my update right now.
Thanks, Fernando. Any questions while we have him here? If not, Mike, anything from ICT, TC? Okay. Minutes from April 18th. Everybody have a chance to review? Approve. Mike seconds. Any discussion? If not, Susan?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Minutes carried. Any further business this morning? Is there anything you'd like us to be looking at in the month of June? I'll ask administration. We know we'll have Roxanne back to talk a little bit on the airport. And,
I'll have to give that a little thought as we are reviewing the capital power forms. I'll give that some more thought and maybe get back to you on that, Lee.
Great.
Thanks.
Okay, if not, is there a motion to adjourn? Or can I just do that?
You can just adjourn.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.